Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. As the cost of living continues to increase, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre blasted the Trudeau government as he addressed his caucus today. We hear from Lethbridge MP Rachel Thomas, who discusses how inflation is causing more people in our city to live in their vehicles. And as the mercury continues to drop, funding has been approved to help Streets Alive Mission in Lethbridge provide an overnight comfort center. We have the details.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. As the mercury continues to drop, it's feeling more and more like Old Man Winter has a grip here in our city. In response, Lethbridge City Council approved over $325,000 to be allocated to Streets Alive Mission for an overnight comfort center. It will allow our city's most vulnerable to come in from the cold 24 hours a day. Now, the center will not operate as a sleeping shelter. The vote at City Council to move forward with the funding was close, however, at 5-3. As BCN's Micah Quinn explains now, this has created quite a stir here in our city.
We seem to be trying to hobble together responses to this, and we're coming up short each and every time.
Lethbridge Councillor John Middleton Hope didn't mince words at Tuesday's City Council meeting. The funding allocation of over $225,000 from the federal government's Reaching Home funds and $100,000 from Lethbridge taxpayers to Streets Alive Mission was approved during the meeting. Middleton Hope says this decision is not the right solution for our city.
This is a problematic location, and until such time as we find a proper alternative, we're going to continue to experience this.
Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Higgin says he's been chatting with business owners in the downtown core who say they've been struggling as of late. He says that's one of the main reasons he voted against the funding for the Christian group.
They're coming through the pandemic. You think that we're paying a lot being residential owners. I know as a business owner as well, that's 2.4 to 2.6 times the taxation. To be hit with something like this, it isn't fair.
Ryan Parker has held a seat on City Council for over 2 decades now. He voted in favor of the funding request, citing a strong need to protect our most vulnerable during the harsh winter months.
There's people freezing and there's people at risk, and I believe it's incumbent upon myself as a member of council to help these folks out. If we don't, these folks will find heat or shelter some way, and they may break in somewhere to get that heat, get that shelter.
The city says the overnight comfort center will operate at Streets Alive Mission until the end of March of 2023. Bridge City News reached out to the organization, but they declined to comment on the story. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Lethbridge City Council voted unanimously to approve the allocation of $1.5 million to go toward an affordable housing project. The funds will support the Aboriginal Housing Society to build the Legacy Ridge housing project. City officials say the funding is subject to the execution of a third-party contribution agreement in a form satisfactory to the city manager. So how does that song go? The weather outside is frightful. Well, it has been frightful. The roads around the city of Lethbridge have been treacherous with all of the snow and ice that have accumulated. Brandon Clausen is the supervisor for roadside assistance with the AMA, and he joins us now from Lethbridge. So, Brandon, how busy has it been for you guys today?
Started to see an influx of calls in the Lethbridge area. I mean, our contractor there is doing really well, and we're quoting about that 2 hours or less to get to you. But they are seeing an influx of calls as it relates to people sliding into the ditch, cars sliding into curbs, flattening tires, stuff like that.
Now, what about when it comes to giving drivers a boost? Have you had a few calls in that regard as well?
We've seen a bit of an increase there, which we're presuming over the next few days here. We're starting to see some colder temperatures that we're going to start to see more of those boosts coming in. So it's super important for people to start plugging in those cars when the temperature hits about -15. That's about the time you want to start plugging them in. And some people always ask us, well, do we need to plug them in all night? It's really about 4 hours before you want to drive is a good rule of thumb. And then hopefully your car will start from there.
Thanks so much, Brandon. That was Brandon Clausen, Supervisor of Roadside Assistance, joining us from the AMA here in Lethbridge. While we saw snow and blowing snow in many parts of the city today, Jeanette Roche is in now with an early peek at the forecast. Jeanette, when can we expect a break from the white stuff?
Well, Hal, to answer your question, we could see a slight reprieve tomorrow. We are going to still be seeing that chance of flurries into this evening. Overnight low of -16. Much chillier, though, with that wind chill into tomorrow. Like I was saying, Thursday, we're going to see the skies clear, lots of sunshine, that slight reprieve from the snow. And then guess what? Thursday evening, we're going to see more flurries, as well as Friday, high of -5 tomorrow, but going to feel more like -20 with that wind chill and, of course, a 20K wind. I will have more details coming up for you later on in the show.
We'll take that sunshine when we can get it. Thanks so much, Jeanette. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre addressed his caucus on Wednesday. He says his party will continue to press the Trudeau Liberals to cut taxes to help make life more affordable. Poilievre says 20% of Canadians are now cutting meals because they simply can't afford the high price of groceries.
1.5 million Canadians hitting food banks in a single month. Mothers putting water in their kids' milk because they cannot afford the price of groceries. This in Canada, with one of the most abundant supplies of farmland on planet Earth. And then there's housing. Young people stuck in their parents' basements even though they've done every single thing we asked them to do. Housing prices are going down, but monthly payments are going up, which means buyers and sellers are losing. Many Canadians fear they might not be able to pay their mortgages as the rates hit higher and higher. And it's not just economics, it's violent crime. It's up 32% under Justin Trudeau. Gang violence has increased, and drug overdoses have become a pandemic right across this country. And what's Trudeau's solution to all this? He and the costly coalition want to drive up inflation further. They want billions more in inflationary deficits. The cost of government is driving up the cost of living.
Lethbridge MP Rachel Thomas says the rising cost of living is so bad that some here in our city are now living in their vehicles.
I've spoken with a couple of individuals actually who have had to move out of their homes. One who's now living in their RV, and another couple that is actually living in their car because they just were not able to make their rent payments, and ultimately had to make that decision. And so ultimately we've had two requests for the Liberals all along, and those two requests have been this: stop the new spending because it's driving up inflation, and no new taxes. Axe the tax.
MP Rachel Thomas will also have the latest on the Liberals' gun ban bill C-21, which she says attacks hunters and farmers. She'll have details coming up in the second half of our program. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he's not willing to kick healthcare reform down the road any farther, with governments appearing to have reached a stalemate in healthcare funding negotiations. Trudeau says his government is willing to offer more money, but only if provinces agree to make changes to improve their healthcare systems.
Every time I sit down or run into or talk with the premiers, and I've covered most of them over the past couple of months, we talk about healthcare. And I say, look, I'm there for more, but we need to deliver those results for Canadians. And they all, on a certain level, agree. I just know that the need from Canadians right now, the urgency, the breakdown of healthcare systems, not just in one place, but across the country. When I was standing beside Doug Ford when he pointed out it's not a question of more money. There's lots of money in the system. That provincial governments have the money to put towards a system if that's what it's needed. There's a moment right now where we have to say, no, you can't just throw money into a system. You have to actually improve the system.
The Bank of Canada lost around $522 million in the third quarter. That marks the first loss in its 87-year history. Trevor Toome is an economics professor at the University of Calgary. He says what's happening at Canada Central Bank is unprecedented.
All the way back to when the bank first started operations in 1935, it has generated a surplus. And that surplus goes back to the federal government. So it was a source of revenues for the government, and now it's doing the reverse. It's incurring losses, and that's going to have implications for the federal budget. It's going to increase the deficit somewhat. And so what's going on? Simply put, higher interest rates are not just leading individuals to have higher interest costs on the funds that we borrow, but for the Bank of Canada, they pay interest when banks deposit their money with the Bank of Canada. just like you and I might earn interest on a savings account. For example, banks have about $200 billion deposited at the Bank of Canada, earning interest. So when interest rates rise, interest expenses of the bank rises as well.
Catch the full interview with Trevor Toome and BCN's Naveen Day coming up in the second half of our program. Chiefs from Treaty 6 territory say they're meeting for the first time with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. The Chiefs say that the meeting on Wednesday was scheduled before Smith even became Premier back in the fall. They've been calling on the province to scrap the Alberta Sovereignty within the United Canada Act, which they say is an infringement on treaty rights. The Chiefs said the meeting with Smith would not be considered an appropriate consultation on the act. Lethbridge Police Service has sent out a warning about the potential of Christmas scams this holiday season. Officials at the LPS say they want to ensure that you know how to best protect yourself from fraud. A member with Lethbridge Police addresses some of the ways that people are being scammed.
The most obvious red flag is any unsolicited communication. So any type of communication where you were not asking for it, you were not expecting it. That's the number one red flag is that, and that's how these fraudsters communicate with people. Like I said before, they don't decide that they're going to call me specifically. They're using a technology to send out messages to multiple people, having no idea where they are, with just the hopes that one person will answer, and that's how they start building their rapport with you. And eventually you part ways with your personal information or your money.
Talbot adds safeguarding your mail is another way to prevent yourself from getting scammed. Anyone who has kids in sports in Lethbridge probably knows Cindy Adachi. She's become an extended member of the youth sports family because of her unique gift of capturing moments on the field and on the ice with her camera. This time, however, it was Adachi's turn to be gifted when she found herself going without. Jeanette Roche has that story.
To most of us, that sounds like any car starting. But to Cindy Adachi, it's the sound of freedom and an early Christmas gift.
I'm excited. I can drive again.
That's because for several months, Adachi's been without wheels.
You had a car. And it died. It had an engine problem that's inherent in the cars, so it died.
With a quote to fix her broken vehicle worth more than the car itself, having no wheels meant Adachi wasn't able to drive to the games at the Prairie Baseball Academy and the hockey rink. And that meant the youth teams have been missing out on this. Snapshots from moments of their games. For over 20 years, Adachi has spent countless hours in the dugout, behind the mound, and on the diamond, capturing these moments on the field and the ice from behind her lens.
Individual action shots. She's running from one side of the dugout to the other dugout so she can get right-handed batters and left-handed batters and action shots.
And she does it absolutely free. Jesse Sawyer was one of those young athletes who remembers Adachi snapping moments of his own youth games.
I've kind of grown up with her, and I was as a player and then as a coach, and she's been taking pictures as long as I can remember. And back in the day, when my first year, it makes me feel old now, but you'd finish up your bowl season or your PBA season and she would hand you a CD with your name on it that was just filled with pictures. So you could go home and you could look through them all and you could get them printed. And I know there's a few at my parents' house in Calgary. Just the amount of work she put into those and like editing them and putting them on a CD for you, it is just incredible. And she is the definition of a volunteer. She does it because she loves it.
Yeah, I do it for free. It's just been something kind of fun. And I have no children, so they're like my kids.
For the big and even the small moments, Adachi has been there capturing memories of a sport that has become such a huge part of these kids' lives. And in turn, she's become a huge part of the youth sports family in Lethbridge. On a Facebook post, one parent writes that Cindy not being present at the games created a huge void. That's why the parents of some of these young athletes set up a GoFundMe page to help her buy a new vehicle. After $700 was raised, they commissioned the help of Lethbridge Collegiate Institute's automotive department, which fixes up older donated vehicles.
And we took some of the money from the GoFundMe and donated it to the automotives program, which would offset the cost. And then we did hold back some of those dollars for Cynthia so she could actually get the registration and insurance just, kind of off the ground and get going.
They were able to, find a safe car and put the last little bit of work into it.
And the keys were presented to Adachi. So, to Cindy Adachi, this car engine is the sound of freedom, but to the young athletes, it's the sound of her camera clicking and the sound of another memory being captured from her lens.
My heart is so full. There are no words to describe this.
For Bridge City News, I'm Jeanette Rocher.
Officials from the Angel Tree campaign in Lethbridge are making one last big push for toy donations. Sparkling gifts are still needed to bring Christmas cheer to kids and families in need. Staff with Angel Tree say this is vital as we draw closer and closer to Christmas.
We have the last 500 children to get gift bundle for, and we are really low on gifts, and it's just that year, right? Everyone is giving what they can. I super appreciate, but we just need that final push to get really good gift bundles to children, to bring magic to them, to bring hope, and we don't want to give them less than the first 500. So that's always our plan, is the first 500 and the last 500 receive the same. And we are asking the community for that just little help to get us over that hump. We have 10 days till Christmas. We will deliver up until Christmas Day if we have to.
A few of the main toys that are still in high demand include dolls, science kits, art supplies, and sports-related items such as soccer and basketballs. For more information, contact Lethbridge Family Services. The City of Lethbridge has officially opened a new ice skating rink downtown at Festival Square. It's the first of its kind here in our city. City officials announced the new addition last week after hearing from community members about the need for an ice rink. An official with the downtown BRZ says they're happy to open the area and to welcome skaters.
As we continue to engage Festival Square, of which we're so incredibly proud and so incredibly lucky to have, we conceived of this idea of setting up a temporary ice rink to persuade folks to continue to enjoy the outside and whatever downtown has to offer, regardless of the weather. And yeah, we just want to activate all year and encourage folks to enjoy the outside during the winter time in healthy activity, fun activity like skating.
The Festival Square ice rink will be open daily from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. Travel could be getting a little bit easier for people with limited mobility at Winnipeg's airport. It's set to start using self-driving wheelchairs, which will deliver travelers right to the gate. The initiative is believed to be the first of its kind for North America. Officials with the Winnipeg Airports Authority say an estimated 1 in 3 travelers will need some form of assistance while traveling in the future. The chairs will cover the entire route from the check-in counter to security and onto the departure gate. I wouldn't mind departing to somewhere tropical right now. We had lots of snow and freezing conditions here in Lethbridge today, but fortunately, a small reprieve is on the way. Full weather details are on deck. We experienced snow and even blowing snow in many parts of southwestern Alberta today. We even saw wind chill values of around -18 in Lethbridge. Jeanette Rocher is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, fortunately the mercury will be climbing again soon, but only for a limited time.
Yes, a very limited time, Hal. Look at that, -1 on Friday, and then we are going to drop after that down to -10 on Saturday. And there's that snow again that I was talking about. We are going to see that slight reprieve from the flurries into Thursday. We're still expecting them tonight. Sunshine, mainly clear skies Thursday and Friday, but then beginning Friday night again, we're going to be seeing those flurries all through the weekend. Saturday, Sunday plummeting down to -17. And then look what happens after that. We're dropping right down to -24 for Monday and Tuesday, which puts us well below average for this time of year. So the average low is -12 only, average high 0. We're not going to be anywhere in that range, unfortunately. 16 was our high temperature back on this day back in 1997, and in 1948. It was real chilly. It was -34. 8:21, that's when the sun rose this morning, and our sun set this afternoon at 4:31 p.m., giving us exactly 8 hours and 10 minutes of daylight as we're getting closer to that first day of winter coming up very soon, next week, in fact. 6 degrees the high tomorrow in Victoria with mainly sunny skies, clear skies as well expected tomorrow in Vancouver, high of 4 degrees. -3 the high for Edmonton, and a high of -2 in Calgary. Sunny skies in both of those Alberta cities as we look to the rest of the prairies. Saskatoon sitting at -12 tomorrow with partly cloudy skies. We're looking at some overcast skies and some flurries expected in in Regina tomorrow, -12 the high, and expecting a high of -1 in Winnipeg tomorrow. Not too bad there, but some flurries expected there as well. As we look to the central part of the country, we're seeing flurries expected in Toronto tomorrow, high of 1 degree. 1 degree also expected in Ottawa tomorrow with clearing skies in the afternoon. Montreal sitting at 4 degrees with partly cloudy skies. As we look to Atlantic Canada, Fredericton was seeing a mix of rain and drizzle and snow, sleet. 2 degrees the high there, 5 degrees the high in Halifax with some showers expected. 2 degrees also expected in Charlottetown. Also looking at precipitation there in the form of rain. And rain also expected in St. John's, Newfoundland tomorrow with a high of 4 degrees. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Today's weather report is brought to you by Ridge Utilities, providing competitive rates for electricity, natural gas, and internet, while investing back in communities across southern Alberta.
The Alberta government announced a 5-year plan to help drive economic growth and address challenges in rural regions. Agriculture Minister Nate Horner says that includes $125,000 to each of 8 regional economic development alliances to support long-term prosperity. Horner says his province is also focused on attracting more workers to rural Alberta and improving internet for those who live on farms and ranches.
The broadband strategy that will invest up to $390 million over 4 years to improve broadband services across the province. Nearly $933 million for irrigation infrastructure in partnership with 9 irrigation districts to expand and modernize Alberta's irrigation infrastructure. A $59 million investment to expand veterinary medicine at the University of Calgary, doubling the number of seats in the program to address a critical shortage of large animal veterinarians in rural Alberta.
Horner also added that $70 million will be allocated to the TV film tax credit to help attract more productions here to Alberta. Stats Canada says manufacturing sales were up 2.8% in October compared with the previous month to $72.6 billion. The agency says overall sales in constant dollars were unchanged, indicating that the increase in sales was driven by higher prices. It says the increase was led by a 12.7% gain in sales in the petroleum and coal industry following 4 straight months of decreases. Meanwhile, sales in the food manufacturing industry hit a record high of $12.3 billion as they climbed 2.9%. StatsCan says sales of vehicles posted the largest decline of 3.2% in October as a lack of materials and microchip shortages continue to plague several auto manufacturers. A new survey suggests that less than a third of Canadians plan to use up all of their vacation days by the end of the year. The poll of 811 people conducted last month by Maru Public Opinion found 29% of respondents said that they would take all of their vacation time in 2022. That is up from 27% last year. The survey also found 2/3 had clocked an average of 20 additional hours of work before and after a 1-week break. That is down from 21 hours in 2021. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 131 points on the day to finish at 19,891. The Dow was down 142 points to 33,966. The S&P 500 was down 24 points on the day to 3995, and the Nasdaq was down 85 points to 11,170. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 201 to 77.40 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 58 cents to 6.36 US. Gold was down 16 cents to 18.0717 US an ounce, and silver was up a cent to 23.96 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $12.19 per bushel, barley's at $9.58, canola's at $19.40, and corn is at $11.61 per bushel. Live cattle were down 40 cents to $154.50. Feeder cattle January contract was down 63 cents to $183.60, and lean hogs were down 8 cents to $82.33. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 73.82 US. Recapping one of our top stories, there's more much-needed help coming for those who are on the streets during the cold winter months. Lethbridge City Council approved a huge funding allocation of over $325,000 to be given to Streets Alive mission for an overnight comfort centre. It'll be a combination of both federal and municipal funding. Officials say the centre will be open until the end of March of 2023. You know, due to the rising cost of living, there are some in our city who are now living in their RVs and cars. Lethbridge MP Rachel Thomas will have details for us coming up shortly. Listen, if you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you.